All right, welcome back. Today we're doing something exciting. I've got a third member here for my tracker, and I've got an electric locker right here. I've got the bolt, all the bearings, and we're gonna get it installed. This is something I've been waiting on for years. I've wanted something like this. Tempted to do like a lunchbox locker, but I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna get the electric locker. So that's what we're doing today. So what we're gonna do, I'll show you a couple things here. Slide you over here where you can see what I'm working on here. There we go. First thing that I did is I marked my housing. I've got I just took a center punch and I put 2 dings in this one, 2 dings in this one. I put 1 ding in this one and 1 ding in this one. The reason I did that was so I know which cap goes on which side. So we are gonna start disassembling this thing. So let's I had these bolts loose already. Start pulling them apart. That bearing cap has been removed and dropped half the parts on the floor. There's that one for that end. There's that one for that end. There's that bearing race, and there's my carrier. It's so cute. Anyway, trackers are awesome. I love trackers. And I am going to cheat. I'm not going to change the pinion bearing. I'm not going to do it. I think that one's in perfectly fine shape. And so I'm not going to deal with changing the pinion bearing. Do I have a new pinion bearing? Of course I do. But I'm not going to change it. Okay. All right. Remember, safety first. And never use a chrome socket on an impact wrench. Bada bing, bada boom. I have my helper in the garage tonight.
I hear them something bad.
She has a loose tooth.
No, 4.
Pardon me, she has 4 loose teeth. All right. Okay, so we've got our new center section here out of the box. It is time. It's time to read some instructions. Okay, so we've read some instructions, and I think I know what I'm doing. I know. Anyway, so we're gonna, first thing to do is it says remove the electromagnet. Okay, doing, doing. We got that out of there. So then this electromagnet is supposed to pull off. Would you look at that? Electromagnet pulls off. That is what engages your locker. Sweet. That's cool. All right. Okay, we're gonna set that over here out of the way. Next thing to do is we're gonna clean up this ring gear. Okay, so we got the ring gear all cleaned up. We got the bolts all cleaned up. And come to find out, I don't have to heat it. It is a perfect fit. Oh, come on. There you go. It is a nice snug fit. And I learned that these little rods fall out if you try to flip it over. So SD card was full and the battery was dead, so we had to take care of that. We were putting the electromagnet back on. Make sure you get everything all lined up and drop that back on there. And we're gonna put this little bugger back in place. That has been snapped all back in there. A little bit of a pain to get in there. But now we can flip this thing upside down, up the other way, and start putting our ring gear bolts in. So, because I flipped it before and all the rods fell out. So we're gonna flip it this time, and we're gonna hold on to this thing with one hand. We're gonna hold it up like that with one hand, and we're gonna start a bolt there. We're gonna start a bolt there. Red Loctite. Yes, you can. So this is what I want you to do. We're gonna smear it. These are getting a healthy helping all the way around. So go ahead and Loctite all my bolts. All right, so we've got all the bolts Loctited. We got them all ran in there. Now it's time to torque them. So I looked at factory service manual. It says 72 foot-pounds. So I gotta figure out a way to hold this thing. This ain't working. Okay, so we moved over to the vise that's still not mounted at the table. And I think this might work to torque these. Ready?
Yeah.
Mark it. They're torqued. That was a pain. Okay, so it's been a day or two, and I don't have press, so we're gonna put bearings on. This is what I did. See? We're really cold. You can't read that. It's right around 0 degrees in the freezer. And then in the oven, those are sitting right around 250 degrees. It's starting to smell like it too. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my gloves, and then I'm gonna grab the center section. I'm gonna set it up right here, and I'm gonna grab one bearing and see if I can drop it on there. So we have about a 250 degree delta between the bearings and things. Don't heat your bearings over 250 degrees. Not gonna talk about it. Anyway, don't heat them over 250 degrees. We'll see if they'll go on with 250 degree heat. If not, I'm gonna have to go get them pressed on. So we'll see. Here we go. All right, here we go. It's not going. Okay, one bearing's on. Fingers bleeding. We are going to flip this thing over and go get the other bearing. Okay, here we go, bearing number 2. Ha! That one slipped on. Hallelujah. So, bearings are on. It's on. Okay, that worked. So you look here. You want to look right down here at your bottom and make sure there's no gap between this and that, and it's solid. It's tight. And I'll flip it over. I'll flip it over and show you the other side here. All right, although I had to drive it on, usually when you drive these on, you want to go until it sounds different. You can feel it actually hit. It's solid, and which is what I did. See right there? There's no gappage. So bearings are on. That worked. Deep freezer and oven. So it was about if I didn't put it in the freezer, it only would have been about 100 and we'll call it 70 degrees in the garage, and it would have been 250 degree bearing. So you only have 180 degree delta between the bearing and the thing. But you put it in the freezer and you get it down to about 0 degrees, depending on how cold your freezer is. Now I have a 250 degree delta. If it would have only been 180, these probably would not have gone on like they did. They went right on. So super happy about it. And look at that. We've got bearings. So, next step actually probably to get my hole drilled in my case, which I don't have sitting on my table anymore because it's been a couple days. I'm waiting for a drill bit. So drill a hole in that, and we're gonna install everything. So here we go. I finished tapping my hole for my bulkhead for the wires to come through. It turned out absolutely beautiful, perfectly flush on the inside. I put a little bit of silicone or RTV, whatever you want to call it. Black blue glue, whatever. Anyway, put that on the threads, screwed that in there. I know it's got an O-ring at the top, but it's not gonna leak. So we've got the carrier set in the housing. It's a bit of a bugger to get in there. Make sure these threads on these things line up and they spin relatively free. These things are still just hand tight. Haven't done anything else on those. Next thing I'm gonna do before I get too far into this, I'm gonna get my wires through the hole where they belong. Finally back to working on this differential again. It's been like another week and a half. This thing has taken me forever, but I've got a lot of other stuff going on, so work on it in my spare time when I can. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna torque down these bearing cap bolts. Factory service manual says 30 foot-pounds. So that's what we're gonna do. I've got it sitting on my nice pristinely clean workbench. It's not clean. Anyway, so we're gonna torque these down and we're gonna just sit up here and give it a nice big hug. That one part of the way, not all the way. I don't want to tighten these evenly. There's one. Three, four. We're going to move to the adjustment procedure for setting these side bearing preload. The factory service manual is calling for 2 to 6 thousandths of spread in the case between the two sides. So I'm going to dig into the factory service manual a little bit more, make sure I fully understand that, and then I'm going to build a wrench to tighten these nuts right here, because I can do it with a couple screwdrivers. It's just cumbersome. So I'm going to build myself a little wrench, and we're going to set our bearing preload, and then we're going to set our backlash. Roughly set this up the way that they tell me to. I don't have any of their specialized tools. They have special tools for screwing in these holes and mounting your dial indicator to and everything. I don't have any of them. So I went ahead and just used my magnetic base, mounted it to this end of the case, and then I didn't have a bolt long enough to screw into this other hole. So I just used a tap, screwed my tap in there. It's all tight, it's all good there. And I know you can't see my dial indicator, but I can see it, and that's what matters. And so what they're asking for is between 2 and 6 thousandths of spread on the case here. So as I tighten this bearing, that's how you get your correct preload on your side bearings. So I'm gonna use my new wrench I built, and we are gonna go ahead and start tightening this bearing up here until we get, it says 2 to 6 thousandths, so I'll probably go 4 thousandths right in the middle of all of it. 1 thousandth, 2 thousandths, 3, and there's 4 thousandths. So that should give us the proper preload on our bearings. Now we get to set our backlash on our gears. So to do that, what we'll do is these screws on the ends will loosen. I'll count the number of holes here, the number of holes here. As I move this one, I got to move this one exactly the same number of holes. So I keep that preload on my bearing. So I'm going to re-rig this thing, set it up for measuring backlash, and we'll go from there. Okay. So we got our dial indicator set up here to measure the amount of backlash in this. So the factory service manual says 8 to 15 thousandths. So let's see where we're at. I've got the dial indicator set to 0, and we are at about 5 right now. So I need to, so what that means is I'm too close. The pinion gear is here, the ring gear is here, and the further in you go, the less backlash you have. So the further out you go, the more backlash you have. So I need to move this ring gear away from the pinion to give me a little bit more backlash there. So I've got used a Sharpie to mark this. Use my tool here. I'm gonna move it, let's move it 2 holes. So 1 hole, two holes right there, and we're gonna come over here to this side and we're gonna do the same thing. There's 1 hole, there's 2 holes. So we moved it 2 holes. Let's see how much backlash we have now. We got about 10 thousandths of backlash in that. But my hole's not lined up here. I'm gonna go a smidgen tighter on this side until my hole lines up. We've got the correct amount of preload on our side bearings. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna go ahead and put our lock keys right here. We're gonna go ahead and slip those in. I didn't change the pinion bearing, so my gear pattern should be the same as it was from factory. But we're gonna check it anyway, just to make sure. Last thing I want is to have my differential blown up on me. And let's check our gear pattern. What do I have I can paint this with? I don't know. I'll get back to you. Okay, so I know they make a special gear marking compound for this. And of course you know me, I don't have any. But what I do have, it's done my wife's lipstick. Don't worry, I didn't steal this out of her makeup bag. This is a stick we reused when we did drywall several years ago. And we used this stuff to mark the can lights. So we knew where to cut the hole. Kind of like bluing. But it worked quite well. And you know what? I think good old lipstick's gonna work for gear marking compound as well. I think I got enough in there to check our pattern. We're gonna put our hand on here to give it a little bit of tension as we spin this around. We'll spin it a couple times here. Oh great, now it's smearing lipstick over the whole thing. Now we're gonna do our other side of the gear. I am quite happy with where that's riding. I know you never show your gear, your stuff on YouTube, but I'm gonna show you. Because, come on, oh, there we go. You can't really see it. I can see it. So, you can kind of see where it's riding on that side. Let's flip it around. You can also see where it's riding on that side. And you can look at the pinion down there as well. And we're good. It's gonna, this one will live. 2. So I know it's a good idea to read the instructions again, because now I'm supposed to tighten these bolts to 72 foot-pounds. Yep, there it is. These things are so hard to hold on to. I swear. Come on. Get the 72. Come on. There it is. Oh, come on. It's turning on me. There it is. Good. Good. All right. That's the final step. So, I ain't going nowhere. Get that pumpkin out, take your brake hub off, take these four, you take your wheel off obviously, take these four out. In order to get your axle out on these, you gotta pop the axles out to get the diff out. Right back here on the back. See if I can hold a camera and a flashlight at the same time. Right back here there's 4 bolts. 2, 3, and there's 4 on the bottom. Or one more on the bottom down there you can't see. Alright, what I do is I pop this brake rotor off, 1, 2, drum. This is a drum, not a rotor. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pop those off. Pop that off. Then I flip it over, and I catch a couple threads here. Take those bolts out, and I use this as a slide hammer. Pop the axle out of the inside. But first, I'm going to drain the oil out of it. Anyway, there it is. It came. All right. It will come out around the brakes, just so you know. It doesn't look like it will, but you just kind of gotta talk nicely to it and it'll come on out. It kind of gets caught on this little lever right here, but you pull the drum off and you get a screwdriver in here and you fiddle with it a little bit, and then just like this, I'll show you my rag here. Carefully, just like that. So I'm not going to bore you with the details on the other side, but I'm going to go pull the axle out of the other side, and I'm also not going to bore you with the details of taking the driveline out. So that's what I'm going to do. Pull the axle out of the other side, pull the driveline out. It's 4 bolts, no big deal. Then I'll show you what it takes to get that pumpkin out of there. All right, so I got the driveline pulled. I got it zip tied up here, up out of the way. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull these bolts out around the perimeter of the pumpkin, and I'm going to pull these 4 bolts out up here on this arm. I don't know what you call that arm, but whatever. So all those bolts, all these bolts, they're all coming out. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so did a fair bit of cleaning around here to try to get as much of the junk and gunk and crap off of there. Now it's time to break that puppy loose. I'm gonna put a safety nut on one on each side so it doesn't just fall out on the ground, and then we got to break this silicone. The one I pulled in the junkyard, it took me longer to break the silicone than it did to pull the axles and everything else. So we're gonna try, first we're gonna try to get a scraper in there. See what we can do here. I'm gonna ruin that thing. I'm gonna get a bigger chisel and a bigger hammer. What I'm doing is I'm going right here. The case is just slightly smaller than that diff housing. So I'm gonna go right here. I'm driving it out. I'm driving it that way. I'm not trying to drive this in between them. Rather, I'm trying to drive that case forward. Might take a little bit to get it to move. Here. And there we go. We got a good, see that? We got a good gap there. Anyway, now let's pull that pumpkin out. It's ready to go. Oh. Okay, as you saw, we got it out. It's heavy, but that's okay. So here's the one with the locker in it. Here's the one with no locker in it, the one that came out of it. One thing to note when you're ordering these, or ordering your locker, some are 10 bolt, some are 12 bolt. So I ordered a 12 bolt locker because they're supposedly stronger. Who knows? So I ended up going to getting a pumpkin out of the junkyard that had the 12 bolt ring gear and pinion in it. Mine is a 10 bolt because it's the earlier trackers, I think through 93 or 94, 89 to like 93, maybe 94, somewhere in there, they are the 10 bolt. The later ones are supposedly the 12 bolt. Don't quote me on this. I don't know for sure, but check yours. It's worth checking just to make sure you get the right locker. One good indication of a 12 bolt that I understand is they have the ABS sensors. They have an ABS sensor with the ABS ring on the carrier. So they have a ring right here. Mine doesn't have that. And I didn't put it on my locker either. So anyway, we're gonna first off, we're gonna silicone this, get some nice blue glue in there, or whatever color. I always call it blue glue anyway, because it was always blue. Now it's black and gray, and they make all different colors of it now. Anyway, we're gonna glue that up, and then we're gonna stab that one back in there. Here we go. Just like that. It's in. Go back together the same way we came apart. So, not gonna bore you with those details, but bolts are back together. Okay, so I'm in here I'm doing all the wiring for the locker, and I'm in here getting ready to cut a hole in the dash for it. These trackers kind of have knockouts. They're not really knockouts. They're just cast in. You still have to cut them out. So what I found works the very best. These things, a little zip, a little oscillating. What are they called? Oscillating multi-tool or something like that. Oscillating multi-tool. Yeah, this is one of my favorite tools I own. Zip up like that. Okay, just like that, we've got a nice clean hole in the dash. Sorry for the lighting. I got all my lights in the car because I'm doing a project somewhere else. Anyway, nice clean hole in the dash. We're gonna feed the wires up through. I've got a snake here that I pull them through the firewall. I went through the grommet in the firewall and pull them through. I'm kind of trying to get them fed up through this hole here. And I'll get them all plugged into the switch, and before I actually put the switch in the dash, I'm going to verify that they're working. Anyway, so I'm working on installing my switch, and the wiring diagram they give you here is, well, anyway. It's hard to read. It's kind of hard to understand what they're trying to say, but I started digging into it, and one of the things I noticed is on the diagram here they have numbers. There's 328 and then 6 and 7 and then wire colors and things like that. So, and I was like, what is that? Because I couldn't see any numbers on this or any markings. You got to look super duper close right down here on the bottom. They're really small, but the pins on the back of this are numbered, and they correlate with the numbers on this wiring diagram here. So that should make it a lot easier to wire up. Yeah, that's gonna help. So I'm gonna wire this up, and like it says, that's a pretty big deal for putting this locker in. So before I run all the wires to the back and get it all zip tied in and tied up and nice, I gotta test everything, make sure it works. So what I'm doing is I got my tester here. I'm holding it in here. I'm watching for 12 volts there. And then, I don't know if you can see this or not, I haven't even put the cap on the switch because I don't want to have to try to take it off, because taking it off, then what I do is come on, you flip the switch, and now we got 12.5 volts. So everything's working, everything's wired. Holy moly. Okay, so switch it, you got 12.5 volts, so everything's working, everything's wired. So now it's time to tidy it up, make it look good. All right, time to finish off this video. So finished up the wiring. Show you what I did. I had to hook a ground in. Hooked a ground in right here where I have my winch ground. I hooked it into there. I have my illumination. I needed to hook that in, so I actually hooked it in on the hot wire for the marker light on the side. So I just tied that one in there. And then I don't have keyed power. So I don't have any keyed power underneath the hood on this. Well, at least a good, there we go. At least a good place to get it from. So until then, this main disconnect is gonna be my keyed power. So, because that's what I use for the winch as well. And then I took the wire, came across down through the headlights, down through here. You can kind of see the wire right here, through back, and then I went right down here, and then I'll show you underneath. But basically chase the fuel lines. Here we go. So I tied it to the speedometer cable. You can see this speedometer cable right down to here, and then tied it to the brake line, and I just zip tied it to those lines as I went through. And then back at the back here, I just went right up around the wishbone right here, right up here, tied it to the main bar on the car, and I gave a little bit of slack right here. I got some slack in it, and then I've got it zip tied right there. So that'll give me all the arm down here. That'll give me all the flex I need in it. Anyway, so locker's all installed. Switch lights up on the dashboard. Everything's awesome. So yeah, that's about it. This video is going to be an interesting one because I filmed this over like a month and a half. It's been a while working on this, just a few minutes here and there. So, but it's done. One of these days we'll get it out, and got to get out and test it. So until then, thanks for watching.